At the end of the 2020 World Snooker Championships, the BBC released a video showing the best shots from the tournament.
Oh, great shot.
But what was the shot of the championships? Well, the decision had already been made without giving anybody else a say.
But don't worry, because I'm finally going to give you a chance to vote on your favourite after we decide how difficult those shots are by recreating each and every one of them.
Welcome back, and if it's your first time watching one of our videos, then it's fantastic to have you here. In case you're new to this format, here's how it all works.
So what I'm looking to do is play all of these shots in the fewest attempts possible as accurately as possible, which should give me a good idea of how difficult each shot is to play. So let's start off with a close finish for Anthony McGill.
In fact, all of Anthony McGill's matches at the Crucible this year were incredibly close, but here's one that went right down to the wire, needing to pot this blue to stay in the game against Jack Lazowski. He managed just about to rattle the blue in and get on the frame ball pink, so could I do the same? This is a really tough, just off straight pot from the bulk cushion, and I think I got really fortunate to be able to pot it in just 2 attempts. After just rattling this pot in, Anthony was able to pot the frame ball pink and win the match, taking him into the second round.
Ronnie started off this tournament by defeating Thepchaiya Un-Nooh in one of the fastest matches in Crucible history.
This helped Ronnie get first chance in what turned out to be the final frame of the match, and was chosen by the BBC as their shot of the championships. Whether it is or not is irrelevant for a minute, because it's an incredibly hard shot that I've still got to get. The pot itself is difficult, with the red being so close to the cushion, and you've got to force an angle out across the table using almost maximum backspin. Again, I think the shot was a lot harder than the 4 attempts it took me to get it right, and it genuinely could have taken me even double that. But for Ronnie, this sealed an impressive 10-1 win and a first step to his 6th world title.
If you end up needing snookers against Mark Selby, then you're going to have to make sure you get a good one.
And that's exactly what Jordan Brown does here, 19 points behind, trying to stay in touch with Mark Selby at 2-all. He not only gets the snooker here, he also manages to leave it about as difficult to hit as it's possible to do. And initially I couldn't get anywhere near the black. I was playing it with a small amount of right hand side, and with the right hand side on the cue ball, I couldn't seem to strike the blue thin enough. At the same time, I kept seriously under-hitting the shot. I knew I must be doing something wrong, but couldn't quite work out what it was. After several failed attempts, I decided to see what would happen if I didn't play the cue ball with any side spin whatsoever, and all of a sudden I started getting a lot closer to the black. I must have tried this shot nearly 20 times, and this was the only attempt where I managed to get a snooker. It may not have been right up behind the black, but at least it was covering the blue. And I think if I put the black in the right place, I would have been a lot closer.
Kurt Mafflin pulled out some exceptional long pots during this tournament, and here's a great example of that.
This one even took the cameramen by surprise, as they were nowhere near ready to get everything in shot. This was just a very confident pot, and with the blue being over the pocket, Kurt knew wherever the cue ball finished, he was very likely to be on a colour. So I'm trying to finish on the black here, but I don't think there's any way I'm going to double kiss the red on the top cushion onto the red above the black and get the cue ball to spin backwards onto the black. So I'm just hoping I'm going to end up with a shot where I can pop the black afterwards. However, the pot itself is still incredibly difficult because it's tricky to catch the red thin enough when the cue ball's that close to the bulk cushion. In the end, I ended up on the black, not quite as far away as when I recreated the wide angle shot, but good enough to be able to pot it. So I'm happy enough with that. But after we find Anthony from Beirut in Lebanon, we're going to be looking at another shot from the same match, where this time John Higgins is trying to keep a break going and has just run slightly out of position. John ended up cutting the red in and getting back in perfect position on the black. Really, this is just a judgment shot because the positional side of it isn't too difficult. You just need to cut the ball at the right angle, and I was a little bit disappointed not to get this first time. But on my second attempt I managed not only to get the pot but perfect on the black. This was a crucial pot because from this position John managed to make a 147 break. However, it wasn't quite enough to overcome the informed Kurt Mathlin, and he ended up going out in this round.
Escaping from snookers can be frustrating at times. Ugh. So here's Nopak Thankam to show you what happens when everything goes just right.
Despite not being able to play down the table here, he managed to spin the cue ball round 4 cushions and leave it completely safe. I always think snooker escapes like this are a lot easier when you've seen someone already attempt the shot, but it was still going to take me a few attempts to get anywhere near this, and to start off with I was surprised at how hard you actually had to strike the cue ball. And at some stage I didn't think it was going to be possible to strike the same set of reds as Nopon because the angles seemed to be slightly different on my table. But as it turned out I wasn't quite playing it right, and on my 4th attempt I managed to go the wrong side of the reds, so the shot was definitely on. This was a really difficult shot, and I think my chances of getting it first time are almost slim to nil here. In fact, I was just happy to even get it once. In the end, this wasn't enough for Nopon as he ended up losing out to Mark Selby.
In his match against Mark Selby, Neil Robertson spotted and lined up a 4-ball plant. Now, all I've got to do is set up a 4-ball plant, so the chances are I'm going to get this first time.
I couldn't really tell the exact position of these 3 reds here, so it was difficult to know exactly how hard the shot was to play, so I ended up just setting up a shot that made the plant, which probably made it a lot easier, and from this position I automatically assumed I was going to get it, so I played for the black rather than Neil's shot where he played behind the black and ended up missing the next shot, giving Mark Selby a chance. Neil still won the frame but not the match.
Unusually, Judd Trump's long potting was a little off in this tournament, but here's one he did knock in.
After dropping behind against the informed Kyron Wilson, he manages to pot a long red after being frozen out for quite a long time. What makes this a difficult shot is it's actually quite straight, and to be able to stun the cue ball round the angles and safe, you have to play it with quite a lot of right hand side, and digging down off the bolt cushion with right hand side makes this shot very tricky. And because of that, I genuinely believe this is one of the most difficult pots on the entire list, so I was happy to get it quite quickly. This, however, was as far as Judd got in the tournament, unable to reproduce the same form as last year and just becoming another player who didn't manage to overcome the Crucible curse.
Sometimes potting a ball and getting a cannon right can be tricky, but Anthony McGill manages to do both from distance here.
This is very similar to Ronnie's shot except from the other side of the table. The pot itself is a little bit easier, but the positional shot definitely isn't, as you had to run into exactly the right part of the red to finish on the black here. To get the cannon, once again this was a shot that for me required almost maximum backspin, and I didn't find potting the red too difficult. It was just getting the right cannon on the red by the black to finish in position. This was a very confident shot to play right at the business end of a close semi-final encounter. Had this shot gone wrong for Anthony, it could have effectively resulted in him losing the match there and then. I was just pleased to get the right cannon on the red eventually, because at one stage I didn't think it was going to ever come off, and I could pot the red 100 times and never finish on the black. But fortunately, when I did get the cannon right, I ended up perfectly on the black, which was almost unmissable. After one of the closest, most exciting deciding frames at the Crucible, Anthony ended up going out to this unfortunate fluke by Kyron Wilson. A cruel way to end a fantastic tournament for the Scot.
Most of the time you'll see professional players use their touch and control to help them escape from snookers and leave nothing on.
After deciding he was no match for Mark Selby in these situations, Ronnie decided to ignore this advice and just get as much distance between the object ball and cue ball as possible. This had gone wrong in earlier frames, but in the decider of their epic semi-final match, fortune definitely favoured Ronnie here, leaving Mark snookered and in a lot of trouble. But Mark managed to find a way out of this snooker and leave Ronnie in a difficult snooker himself. Because of the position of the game, this was a really tough shot to take on. If Mark had missed it in the same way I had in my first few attempts, he would automatically have lost the frame and the match. On this shot, I realised I got the blue in slightly the wrong place, but I don't think it matters. What might have mattered is I've got the red off the cushion, possibly slightly further away than it should be, but I think it's still fairly close, or possibly even close enough. I played my shot a little bit harder than Mark's, and I definitely think he would have liked to got the snooker like this rather than how he got it, because Ronnie was able to escape from the snooker and once again snooker him back. This time with a lot more control, and it was this shot that ultimately cost Mark the game, as when he tried to swerve around the red, he caught the far jaw and left the red on for Ronnie. This was another intriguing end to a close and exciting semi-final.
And Sebastian is from Auckland in New Zealand. Okay, that won't... Hang on. Sebastian is from Auckland in New Zealand. It's in. Now, Ronnie's shot was chosen as the shot of the championships, and it probably was, but for me it was only the fourth most difficult shot to play.
For someone of my ability, I found the pot on Judd's shot very slightly harder, digging down with side spin off the bulk cushion, even though you didn't have to control the cue ball quite so accurately. I found the second hardest shot to play, the Anthony McGill shot, where you did have to have really good control of the cue ball, even though it was a similar shot to Ronnie's with a slightly easier pot. But I think the hardest shot was definitely Jordan Brown's snooker. I couldn't get anywhere near this, other than once. My sixth attempt out of about 25 was the only one where I even got the snooker.
Now, it still doesn't take into account the exact situation the player had to deal with or the position of the game, and there's going to be some shots that I'm better at and worse at, so my idea of difficult might not be accurate. But either way, I'm allowing you to have a vote on which shot you thought was best instead of just telling you. So have a look at the poll in the description to vote on your favourite shot.
Because I know you'll have your own idea of the shot you found the most impressive. And if you want to see more videos of me recreating shots from tournaments, then have a look at these two. And remember, don't just watch, play, and make the commitment to becoming a better player by subscribing to the channel and visit the website. See you later.